let's bring in John Brennan, the former director of the CIA, now an NBC News senior national security and intelligence analyst. Director Brennan, good morning to you. Let's start there. What more can you tell us about precisely how they were able to pull off this kind of operation? Because it really does look like something out of a spy movie.
Well, it does, Craig, and I must say that the Israeli intelligence and security services have tremendous technical capability as well as creativity in terms of how they put together such operations. And so as the New York Times is reporting, it was a shell company that apparently was set up by the Israelis that fabricated these pagers and included the explosive material inside of them that could be detonated with some digital signal that was sent. So again, this is something that intelligence services over the years have tried to do in terms of trying to compromise supply chains. Usually it's for surveillance or collection capabilities, so you can listen in on conversations or something along those lines. But the scale of this really is quite unprecedented. But again, it just demonstrates Israel's ability to reach into the supply chain of one of its arch enemies, Hezbollah.
Well, I think it does beg the question, though, Director. Is detonating a wireless device, is that an acceptable form of warfare?
Well, I don't believe so, because there's no way the Israelis would have known who was going to have these pagers at the time, which is why we see that there were some children and others who were killed. It's basically almost a fire and forget mechanism that the Israelis engaged in here. So it's going to tactically disrupt Hezbollah's communication capabilities and in terms of their ability to communicate with one another. But you have to question whether or not this is strategically wise in terms of what it might do in terms of just further emboldening Hezbollah's interest in trying to lash back against Israel, including on the international terrorist front, because Hezbollah is a very, very capable organization in terms of launching terrorist attacks outside of the region. They've done it over the years. And so I do think that Hassan Nasrallah, the head of Hezbollah, is going to feel quite a bit of pressure from his organization to lash back at Israel sooner rather than later.
What do you say about the possibility, after these attacks, the possibility that something like this does in fact lead to a large-scale conflict between Israel and Lebanon?
Well, the big question is whether or not the Israelis plan some type of large military operation to follow these disruptive activities over the past 2 days. If an army and military is going to launch a military operation, they'll try to degrade the communication systems of the enemy first. So was this some type of preparation of the battlefield to allow the Israelis then to be able to strike against Hezbollah and Hezbollah not being able to defend itself? So I do think there's a greater potential now for escalation. A lot depends on how Hezbollah responds. But clearly, Netanyahu, Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel, wants to vanquish not just Hamas, but also Hezbollah. And quite frankly, I wish that he would use more time and effort to try to see whether or not there's a way to bring down some of the tensions, as opposed to using the military and violence to lash out against his enemies.
Former CIA Director John Brennan. Director Brennan, thank you, sir. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for watching. Don't miss the Today Show every weekday at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 Pacific on our streaming channel, Today All Day. To watch, head to today.com/allday or click the link right here.